right, and we're back with another episode of the Deliberate Dropout. Today, we're going to talk about two topics. We're going to run it back to back. First, we're going to start off with the fun one. Why you should stay in college. Lucho, open us up. What are your top reasons you should stay in college? Average person going to school right now, why should they stay in?
I mean, 95% of the time you probably shouldn't be staying in. But if you are, obviously I'm biased, but if you are going to stay, I mean, the only situations I see is if it's an actual, like, you're already like 80% there, you're about to get your degree, you're about to get your diploma, and it's actually a high income skill that you're getting. So for example, if you're becoming a doctor, if you're becoming an attorney, if you're about to go into pre-law, if you have that route set up already, that's the only plausible way I see why you would stay. I mean, anything other than that, there's really no excuse. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities in the workforce. There's plenty of opportunities elsewhere. To me, if you're gonna stay, my big thing is like ROI, like return on investment. If you're getting a degree in liberal arts or English, your ROI is probably not as high as, let's say, if you're learning a skill like, let's say, pre-med or bio or whatever it may be. I don't know. I'm big on, like, if you're going to go to college, if you're in STEM, it kind of makes sense. If not, it really doesn't. What's your thoughts though? How do you look at it?
Yeah, man, I think the STEM thing, you took the words out of my mouth there. Those are like, hey, if you're there, there's, I think the data supports that you're going to make a good ROI if you are, studying hard, top of your class. You want to be a chemical engineer or a mechanical engineer, or, work on rockets or something like that. There's plenty of opportunity there, and there are plenty of companies, and the industries are expanding there. Plenty of opportunity. You will have opportunities. All that aside, regardless of what you're studying, here's my take on it. My first take on it is, if you do not have a plan, probably shouldn't be there. If you do have a plan, though, you know what you want to get, regardless if like, hey, here's the job I have lined up.
Right.
I'm here for a reason. If you're here for a reason, more power to you. There's probably behooves you to do the whole analysis of, like, is there a more efficient, better route for me to go get what I'm trying to get? But if you've done the calculus there, it makes sense. Or even if you're happy, you're enjoying it and you're comfortable with the cost of it, and you have a plan, you have a deliberate strategy. Here's what I want to get out of this. And you are all in on that. You are making the most of your time. You're going and getting extra mentorship and tutoring from, professors in areas where you think it's valuable. You are asking questions, you're taking notes, you're taking full advantage of the labs and the campus library and all the perks that are part of that, $40,000 to $100,000 per year tuition. I don't see any problem with it. In fact, more power to you. I'm not going to wave the whole, like, anti-college. You should never be there under any circumstances. There are definitely good opportunities. So that's my first one. I think there are a couple others where I could make a case, but that's where I'm going to start. What do you got to add?
No, that's a great point. To be honest, if you have the resources for it, it may not be as bad of an investment. Like, if you're going to go in debt for it, I feel like that's where the problem is. If you're, like, putting, like, student loan debt out there and you're racking up like 6 figures of just bad debt, I feel like that's where the problem is. But if you have the funds, like you mentioned, if you have the strategy is obviously an important role as well. If you have the strategy and the funds, I mean, there's really, you might as well do it. And if you're passionate about what you're doing. So I totally agree.
Yeah. So let's elaborate on that a little bit more too, because here's the flip side of the equation is, even if you don't have debt, I'm going to take that angle for just 1 second. Even if you don't have debt, I think that too many people overlook the opportunity cost of their time. And so it can be easier to let yourself off the hook of, like, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I don't have a plan. I don't even have a deliberate strategy for what I want to get out of this, but at least scholarships or my parents or a trust or like my grandparents set up a 529 savings plan, or the state that I'm in has some kind of like grant program. Like, I'm not paying for college financially, so it's worth, I might as well go. I think that's still like doing yourself a disservice, because it's devaluing how else you could spend that time. And it's being disrespectful to yourself. Like, what else could you be doing? You could be doing something that excites you more, something that's, gives you more forward momentum. That's my biggest take on like the people who say, hey, I'm not taking out debt. It's paid for. I know that's a tough thing to think about, because you feel like, hey, I don't want to miss out on this because it's already paid for, or I owe somebody because they've already, put the money here.
Yep.
The other side of the equation, though, the debt thing. So I don't have this idea fully fleshed out. Maybe you can help me riff on this though. But you said the idea of like bad debt. And so I've been trying to gauge how I feel about debt used for investment and self, debt used for education, debt used for anything that's not like I'm buying a tangible asset. And I almost think, it's hard to quantify because you are not buying a tangible asset, but I still think that you can take the mindset of like, am I building equity in the thing that I am going into debt for, or am I not? Am I truly just taking on debt? And so when I say, am I building equity in this thing I'm taking debt out on? And so let's use student debt as an example. I'm taking on debt to finance my degree.
Yep.
Here's an example of building equity in that degree that you're purchasing. Like I just said, you've got a plan. You are making the most of the opportunity. You are seeking out the mentorship that you can get. You are using your status as a student to gain access to people who are generally more accessible when you approach them as, hey, I'm a student, I'm trying to learn, versus like, I'm a young professional. Like, as a student, people will give you so much more time of day when you say, I'm a student, I'm trying to learn, hey, I'm enrolled here, blah, 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 blah. Like, sometimes there are opportunities that can open up for you. And so anyway, I don't want to stray too far from the point, but the strategy there is, I know that when I walk out of this, even though I do have debt, I will be better off than when I started, because I have a plan. I've made the most of it. I've gotten something that I could not get on my own without taking on this debt. And my degree, it's actually an asset because of the value that it represents for me in the future, or the value that it represents in my personal growth, my education. Short of that, though, I think it's bad debt, and you should probably be very, very clear about what this is going to cost you if you decide to stick around and finish it out.
Yeah, for sure, bro. That's a valid point. I was wrestling it. It's just subconscious for me, like bad debt. I just said it subconsciously, but now that like we actually explored, like we kind of dived deep into it, equity. I think that's the key word here, like equity. Are you building equity in yourself, obviously in yourself, in this by getting this degree? If you're not going to get value in the classroom, another way I see of building equity, like going to university, is like at least start networking and meet like some really solid people. If you are going to go down that route, like if you go to university and you're networking with future like attorneys, accountants, you're like people that you could actually like, that could actually help you out when you decide to open up a business or whatever path you decide to take. I'm just using that as an example, but I see that as another potential way to like actually build equity. But the key thing I got out of that is like, are you building equity? And if you're not, basic, like, that's like a negative amortization. Like if you look at it from like a loan person, like if you like for yourself, like you're losing value, then you're just, it's not going to the principal. So you're just losing, you're not really benefiting from it.
Yeah. So good point there about the network. So I want to riff on that for a second too, because, should you stay in college? Here's some things. One, I think people overemphasize the network that you get in college, but you can do it right. I think that, we've talked about this in another episode, but, go make the most of those relationships. If you decided to stay and you're enjoying it, build out your horizontal network. Like, network with your peers. Go find, I love this quote. I heard it, sometime when I was in high school, some public speaker, some conference, at some point. And I don't know who it is that said this or who gets original credit, but the quote is, identify the thoroughbreds of your generation and keep in touch. So like find the people who are doing exciting things, and don't just make this transactional, but the people who challenge you to be better, the people who, you want to run with, the types of people you want to surround yourself with. Go find your peers on campus who are in the clubs that you're interested in. Go build those relationships. And I think this is where a lot of people, they don't do this next step though, is also think about their vertical network. So there are a lot of very well-meaning professors on campus who want you to succeed as a student, especially if you are in their program or you're in one of their classes. Go find those people who do want to reinvest in you, make them mentors, be valuable to them, help them grade papers or something. Do something valuable to them to get in proximity to them so they can share their knowledge, wisdom with you. And also, next step, this vertical network. Are there other people, industry professionals, that these professors have contacts with that could give you a job, that could hire you when you're coming out of college? That's like maximizing the opportunity of the time and place you're in. If you've decided to stay, you are building, you're taking advantage of all the resources there, but you're also tapping into that network. You're not just building the horizontal network with your peers, but you're also building that vertical network and trying to, cultivate relationships with people who are farther ahead of you in their lives and careers and who can move mountains for you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you that's the way to network. If you're going to go to university, if you're going to go down that road, that's definitely the way to go. I couldn't agree more.
All right. So this has been another episode of the Deliberate Dropout. If you're in college, check this out. If you're thinking about dropping out, you're not sure if you're in the right place or if you should stick it out, check this out. Let us know in the comments if you're on YouTube. What else do you think? What other questions do you have? What other cases do you have to be made for staying in college, for considering something different? We'd love to hash it out with you. Thanks again for listening to another episode of Deliberate Dropout. We'll be back again soon.